Russell Potter here, Motivo Academy, and if you've been watching the amazing FX drama Shogun, then this video is for you. Now, Motivo Academy is about helping good people like you do great things, and there are some life lessons that you can take away from the drama Shogun, which is based on the Bushido Code. Now, I've lived in Japan for 5 years. I've been coming here for 20 years. My son is Japanese, and I can share some priceless insights that you can take away. And I can explain a lot of what you're seeing in the drama Shogun that you might not be aware of. You might have some questions. Why do they have two swords, for example? I'll explain that in this video and how you can apply some of those principles to yourself. I think you're going to enjoy this video. It's one to watch to the end. It's a countdown style, and I'm going to take you outside into Tokyo during this video so you can see a little bit of the city.
'Here we are at the Imperial Palace, which you can see behind me. It's a very, very noisy street. There's a lot of runners around, a lot of traffic, but it is a great place to bring you the first lesson from the drama Shogun, and that is to live your life by a code of conduct. Now, in the drama Shogun, they're living by the Bushido Code. So all the samurai, they seem to have very serious respect to their duties, a sense of honor, a sense of self-discipline, courage. These are Bushido values, and this is the code of conduct by which the samurai lived. But there's a lot of overlap between the Bushido Code and some of the other wonderful philosophies that have been successful and maintained to this day to be very strong codes of conduct, such as, for example, Stoicism would be one. And you could certainly argue a lot of the religious values and codes of conduct from Christianity, from Islam, are also very, very good ways, very good moral codes to live your life by. Now, my recommendation for you as an executive coach, as a leadership trainer, and someone who's trying to bring out the best in good people like yourself through coaching and teaching, would be to live your life by a code too. Now, my personal code is to be mature, strong, and wise in all situations. Strength doesn't just mean physical strength, it means emotional, intellectual, mental strength as well. And then I know if I'm prepared and I'm also courageous, then those values will take me far, and they've taken me quite far in my life so far. So write down what your values are, write down your own code, values you aspire to. Remember, it's a practice. It's a practice that you do every day. You aspire to, you don't have to be there yet. But if you know what those values are, it gives you a true north to help you to navigate through difficult times. Sometimes life is going to be difficult, sometimes there's going to be tragedies, sometimes there's going to be disappointment. But if you know what your code is, you have a true north to navigate by, and that's why it's the first lesson from the drama Shogun.
There are also tsunami that come from the sea and fires that break out in the villages and cities. It is why our houses are built to go up as quickly as they come down. Because death is in our air, in sea and earth. It can come for us at any moment. Before you meddle with our politics, just remember, we live and we die. We control nothing beyond that.
Not a bad place to tell you about the backstory of Shogun, specifically the historical context of the drama. Now, it's set in the Edo period in Japan around 1620. Many things are happening globally. This is the age of exploration. This is the Vasco da Gama age. And as you can see in the drama, there are some Portuguese missionaries there. Now, Vasco da Gama was a very famous explorer. He's the guy that sailed from Portugal all around southern Europe to get to India, discovered India. And it's also the reason they speak Portuguese in Brazil, because their exploration went much further afield, including here's Japan. So Japan at that point started to realize that there was other nations globally, other forces globally, and they could potentially be invaded. Now, the Mongols tried twice in the 1200s, in the 13th century, failed twice because of the weather of Japan. They didn't read the sea, they put their seaweed out, they didn't watch do their weather forecasting properly, and they got taken out by typhoons on both occasions as they tried to cross the Sea of Japan. So this is the time. So Japan is at this point realizing that they are at danger of being invaded. They have a very, very harsh climate. There's earthquakes, tsunamis, and all kinds of extreme weather in the summer. It's very, very hot here in the summer. It's very, very cold in the winter. So extreme climates. So you start to see why they live by this very rigid, strict code for mutually assured safety, to make sure that everyone is looked after, everyone does their bit, and we're all safe. Now, at the same time, there is feudal Japan at that time. Now, Europe was feudal at the time. For those of you who don't know what that means, it basically means lords and ladies have inherited lands that they were probably given after serving the country in a war at some point. And given the lands, they administer those lands, and of course, you know, they can reap the benefits of those lands as well. That system stopped, by the way, around the 1870s, certainly here in Japan at the Meiji Restoration, simply because industrialists said, well, that's pretty unfair. We own all the industry, we make all the money, but you got all the privilege. So that stopped them. But Lord Torunaga,
この吉井虎長、そなたらの志に頭を下げます。
Torunaga-sama. 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 Sama is a mark of respect. You don't hear that so often in Japan unless you are going into a store. They call you kaksama, honored customer. But sama after a name is just a mark of respect. But he is a daimyo. He is essentially a lord who's been given a fiefdom to rule over. He's his Kanto. Kanto is where I am right now in Tokyo. And Kanto is really the most powerful and the biggest area of Japan. So that's the backstory, and the drama is about power, it's about politics, it's about set in that age, but it's all about power and politics, and there's a lot of great lessons that you can take away from the drama Shogun, which I'm bringing to you in this video.
あっぱれじゃ、虎長殿。女子を知る前に初陣で勝利する者は多くない。正式に降伏いたす。溝口は正々堂々戦こうたと、そなたの言う筆に伝えてくれぬか。勝ち目のない戦に立ち向かわざるを得なかったのは我が宿命じゃ。わしは戦の神道に解釈されたと。
Behind me, you can see the beautiful Skytree Tower here on the Sumida River. First thing in the morning here, I'm getting up very, very early to reshoot this video. I made a mistake in the last one that somebody pointed out. Now, this building is modeled on the form of the katana. The katana is the samurai sword. You see it in the drama Shogun all the time. And it's pretty well known in the West, of course, as samurai sword. But there are two other swords. One is called a wakizashi. It's a backup weapon, so I'm told. And there is a tanto as well, which is a shorter sword. And as you saw in the clip just now, you saw someone committing an act of what's called seppuku, using one of those weapons, presumably the tanto. Now, if you're an expert in these things, please put your comments in the comment section below and share your knowledge about these things to the group, because I'm not a historian. But what I am is an executive coach. And what I am is somebody who teaches leaders and senior leaders around the world about how to bring out the best in themselves. And one of the traits that you can certainly learn from the Bushido Code that is still prevalent in Japan today is about taking 100% responsibility and accountability for your actions. Seppuku was done when the samurai disgraced themselves or brought dishonor on themselves. And their way of atonement and dying an honorable death was seppuku. Now that's pretty extreme, but it was true for the time. And there are reasons for this, which we'll come to in a second. In modern day Japan, it is expected that you will fulfill your duties and responsibilities to 100%. Not 150%, not 120%, but not 80%, and not 60%, 100%. If you work in a Japanese corporation, if you start your bonus at 100%, for every mistake you make, you get a little bit less. But you don't get paid a lot more. You don't get paid 120%, 150%. It's very rare that companies in Japan that do that. Most of them are foreign companies here in Japan. And there's a reason for this. Historically, there is extreme weather, obviously, not just historically, still today, obviously. We have volcanoes, we have typhoons that hit a couple of times a year, especially in the Okinawa area. We have earthquakes now and again as well, with resulting, sometimes if they're really big, a tsunami as well. And there is extreme heat, and sometimes it's pretty cold in some places too, certainly up in Hokkaido. And for that reason, society certainly in the Edo period is as strong as its weakest link. Everyone had to fulfill their duties for the mutually assured safety of everybody else. But fast forward to today, and that is still the case today. Everyone is expected to do their duty, to the point that if you go to, let's say, a tailor, or you go into a store sometimes and you make a request. For example, you take a jacket and you say, can you take the shoulders in? And they'll say, taihen, meaning difficult. And you'll think, well, just give it a go, right? Very Western values, certainly one of my values, just give it a go. And they'll say, no. If they can't do it to 100%, they won't take the job on. And that's actually a very valuable lesson that we can take away from the drama Shogun, that if you're given a duty, don't take the duty on unless you know you can fulfill that duty at 100% of expectations. Now, if you can exceed expectations between you and I think that's a good thing. But taking a job on, taking full accountability for that job, and especially the impact that that job has on others and how others might rely on you to do that job, is a fantastic lesson that we can take away from the drama Shogun, and you can apply in your life too.
人も鷹も同じじゃ。わしが命ずるままこの拳からまっすぐに飛び立ち、動く者すべてを殺す者がおる。その一方で餌で釣らねば動かぬ横着者もおる。じゃがな、手なずけられん者などおらぬ。人を操り、獲物めがけて飛ばす術を身につけよう。そなたのために狩りをさせるのじゃ。殿。そのことが飲み込めるので。
Come here to the National Deer Building here in Tokyo to teach you a lesson that you can learn from the drama Shogun. Now, Torunaga-sama speaks to his son after his son says to him, hey, why do you have this enemy, or why do you have this friend? And he said, you have no idea. When you're ready, I'll tell you. What he meant by that was that you don't have friends and enemies in politics. What you have is interests. All countries, including the Japanese government behind me, have three levels of interest. They have, first of all, supreme interest, which is usually around border integrity, and it's about the well-being of the population. Then they have vital interest, which usually is about access to the materials that the country needs to survive. It needs access to energy, for example. It needs access to raw materials for its manufacturing, these kind of things. It also needs access, and it needs the enforcement of international trade rules and trade routes and so forth. These would be vital interests, very important. The country could not function without those things. Then you've got strategic interests. So for example, you might need energy from gas from, let's say, the Middle East, for example, or oil from the Middle East. That will be a strategic interest. And all countries often have this written down on their websites, actually, but you should have the same for you. And Torunaga-sama certainly knows his interests. He knows what his interests are at those different levels. He's not necessarily sharing them outwardly in the drama, but this is something that you can absolutely do, and we do in coaching quite a lot. The benefit to you of knowing what your personal supreme, vital and strategic interests are is that whenever you come across an opportunity or an event that happens, you need to know how to respond. And you can respond using your code of conduct, your code of honor, as we discussed earlier, but it's extremely important that you know what your interests are. And this helps you, and it helps governments like the Japanese government behind me to know when to engage and negotiate and sometimes be firm and sometimes be flexible, when they can let things go because it's not related to the interests of themselves, yourself or the country, and when you need to be really firm, when it's actually threatening a real interest that you have. And this comes on to a later point that will make another lesson you can learn about diplomacy and how to use that, certainly with other people. So take the time to write down what your own interests are. Now I'll share what my interests are, just to give you an example. My personal interest, my supreme interest is obviously staying alive, so maintaining my consciousness, because I can't help anyone if I'm dead. So that would obviously be supreme interest number one. Supreme interest number two would be the protection of my family. The safety of my son is absolutely paramount. There is nothing that comes ahead of that apart from me just staying alive so I can do that, fulfill that duty. Number three on that list would be probably protecting my wealth, purely for the reason, not about being a billionaire or something, but more about, hey, I can't look after other people and myself unless I protected my financial well-being. My vital interests would be around access to clients, access to mobility, access to banking, these core things that really I couldn't live my life without unless I had them. And strategic interest for me would be things like access to YouTube and having a successful YouTube channel, so please subscribe and help me with that strategic interest. But also things like access to affordable plane fares to where my son lives in Indonesia, for example. These would be typical strategic interests. Or a strategic interest would be around access to great companies so that I can coach their senior leaders and help to place their senior executives as an executive headhunter as well as an executive coach, which is what I do for a day job. So these would be my strategic interests. Think about what your strategic interests are, your vital interests, is right at the top, your supreme interests as well. And whenever you come up against an opportunity or a change in your life or something that happens, filter that new information through your interests and make your decisions accordingly. And it's a great lesson that you can learn from the drama Shogun.
僕次第もないことにございます。しかし殿に対するあまりの非礼につい。非礼？石堂殿がいつ非礼なことを申された。
A life lesson that you can learn and apply from Shogun is the art of diplomacy. Now, Mariko-sama, when she translates John Blackthorn's language, when she translates what he's saying, she translates it into an absolutely delightfully diplomatic way. She translates it for Torunaga-sama in a way that just sounds so polite, so diplomatic. This is a skill that you can really use. Now, in Japan, you even find that today. You might come across somebody who might look dressed up like quite aggressively, like a kind of punk or something like this. But they will never speak aggressively. They will always speak very respectfully and very diplomatically. It's a skill that is practiced here. In everybody in Japan practices the skill of diplomacy, and it's something that you can take away from shogun as well. It's a very rare skill these days in society, certainly Western society, where really the emphasis in Western society is about using force, forcing people to do things, manipulation would be another way that more in Western society that you see quite often people trying to influence situations. But actually, just framing a problem, framing an issue, where you do decide to engage, remember, based on your supreme interests, your vital interests, your strategic interests, if you learn to engage in very diplomatic language that doesn't irritate the other person, that doesn't put the other person on the defensive, you are far more likely to get what you want. But most importantly, it's a competitive advantage that you can have over your peers, over other people in your workplace, over just general society. It's a skill that you will have that is becoming increasingly rare.
Mariko, 我が最愛なる娘。お前の悩み苦しむ姿に心が痛む。常に従順な子であったお前にも大義のために尽くす時が来た。使命は受け継がれるもの。
Here at Meiji Jingu Shrine, one of my favorite places in Japan, is a great place to talk to you about one of the other fantastic things that you can learn from the drama Shogun. Now, Mariko-sama, she talks about the eightfold fence. And basically what that means is about not needing to transmit your emotions outwardly all the time. This is a very, very Japanese value. So here in Japan, you tend to find that people don't communicate their emotions so much. It's not considered a done thing. Now, in the West, we would consider it to be actually something that's healthy, and I wouldn't disagree. I'm a coach, so I would certainly say sharing your emotions is not a bad thing, but I think it's situational. And what Mariko-sama is talking about with the eightfold fence is not transmitting your emotions all the time, but being aware of them. Like she said, she can hear the leaf falling, but she doesn't have to express that. And this is one of the great lessons you can take away from the drama and apply in your life. It's a very stoic value. Stoics talk about temperance, about being calm in a storm. And this is a great value to have. Now, a lot of the people on the channel are leaders. You want to be a leader of people, a leader in your family, leader in your community. So you can, if you can have good temperance, if you can have the ability to not transmit your stress all the time to those around you, you can become a very trusted person in your community because they will look to you as calm in a storm. And that's why it's a great lesson from the drama Shogun.
Ask her husband if he'd share the story of his escape in Osaka. I'm never too late for a good story.
恐れ入りまする。安仁様は大阪を脱出なさった武勇伝をぜひ聞かせてほしいとおっしゃっておられます。
武勇は死人を飾るもの。物語は
安仁様が不作法なことを申しお詫びいたしまする。安仁様のお国では手柄話をするのが普通の。
In this scene, you have John Blackthorne in this very, very awkward dinner at his house, where he asks Buntaro to share a war story about his escape from Osaka, because in Osaka he was left behind and he fought off, all of these other samurai or soldiers, whoever they were, but he survived. And John Blackthorne, he asks him, Anjin-sama asks him, share a story. So John Blackthorne is just asking for a conversation, and it's the typical conversation that you would hear in the West, but not in Japan, and definitely not the Bushido Code. boastfulness in Japan, talking yourself up, bigging yourself up as is otherwise known in the UK. But boasting is absolutely not done in Japan. It's very much looked down on, and in the Bushido Code, in the drama Shogun, that's very, very true. And Buntaro says stories are for children, and boasting about those things, that's for people that's for the dead. So that's a lesson that you can take away, that boastfulness is not an endearing quality. It's not a masculine quality. It's not a quality of a samurai. And letting your actions do the talking is enough. Buntaro-sama, he managed to fight his way out of Osaka. Everyone knew how difficult that would be. He didn't have to say a word. Leave a comment below about what you thought of Shogun, your favorite character, your thoughts, what you love about the drama, and also the lessons that you've taken away from Shogun that you've applied in your life. Subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to do a video very soon on lessons that you can learn from June, life lessons you can learn from June. Love the movies, both the first and second June movies. There's a huge amount of life lessons there about different sources of power, political power, cultism power, all kinds of fantastic life lessons that you can learn and apply in your life. And but please like and subscribe, make a comment, because it really helps me. It really helps the channel to grow, because then the video goes viral. We want to help good people like you do great things. And I want to thank you for watching.